awesome people. It's been a minute since I've done this, so give me a minute to make sure that Instagram is straight. Y'all know how Instagram does. And matter of fact, when I logged on, even though I logged on yesterday, it posted a message saying how Instagram may have some issues. So I hope everything is well. I hope the sound is well. So it looks like we're live on Instagram too. Y'all, it has been a minute. I know, and I apologize for that. I'm sorting some things out, faithing some things out, as I tell people. So the episode today, I'm really excited about. But before we get into today's episode, the purpose episode, y'all know how I start. I do church announcements. So we're currently live on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Please know that you can follow me on all social media platforms if you like what you see. Like, share with other people. We're going to be talking about Forever. Me and this awesome sister today, we're going to be talking about the hit show Forever. If you have not watched that show, you are under a rock. So I need you to get it together. So again, you can find me on all social media platforms. I'll admit on Instagram, I'm now Ryan and Jenkins number one pin on Instagram. I have my other page. I'm working on some things. I have this broadcast will definitely be available once we're done taping. It will be available on Apple Music, Amazon, iHeart, Spotify. So you can listen to us or you can watch us on YouTube. It will stay up on Facebook and Instagram for like 24 hours. As far as anything big that's coming up this week alone, like this Sunday, if you're not doing anything, please come by. The Babylon Kino is off of 631 Hardin Street. We are engaging in part 2 of a discussion of the parable of the sower and the parable of the talents. I saw last week they had an awesome discussion about sinners. And this is part 2. We started this with the Read Freely Fest. So we realized it was so many things we hardly touched the surface on. So we're doing part 2. So join us. Tickets are on Eventbrite. It's from 2 to 4 this Sunday. And then I'm doing my own show, y'all. Yes, I'm actually doing my own show. So that is July 13th. Get your tickets. It is $15 in advance, $20 at the door. Shy Moonlight will be hosting. When a Storm will be featuring. I also will be accompanied by Rod Foster, which that is super big. If anybody knows anything about Rod Foster, he's everywhere. And then Ace Sage is going to be accompanying me on one song. But prior to that day, what was I thinking? But I don't mind performing for the people. We're having the city of Columbia is having what is called City Market. And it's free. To park in the garage is $5. There'll be poetry, live music, food. I will have my table out there, but it's in the Lincoln Tunnel that July 12th, which is the Saturday before my show. So I'm really excited about that. And then last but not least, at the end of July, I've been telling you about this. Black Writers Weekend in Atlanta. I'm truly grateful and awesome. And when I get a chance, as a matter of fact, I'm going to do a podcast by myself to just kind of catch y'all up on some things. But this is definitely something, I won this, y'all. I wanted to vend. Someone put my name in the hat and I end up winning an opportunity to be there and to vend at this event, which is truly a blessing. So today, we are accompanied by an awesome young lady. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't even know how we met. I'm pretty sure it was through social media. I was following someone. She was following someone and came across her page. I'm going to be honest with you. And come to find out, we're kind of in the same circles with the same people. So I'm going to bring her up on the stage. She goes by Jessica Renee. So I'm going to bring her up on the stage. And like-minded people who definitely love Jesus and being on fire for God, but at the same time, in the midst of that fire, we're very purpose-driven, and whatever God has for us, we're open to it. And what I admire about her journey is she has been very open and honest about her ups and her downs of entrepreneurship, what she wants to pursue. And I'm going to have her share her journey later after we finish our discussion about Forever. So before we even get into Forever, the Netflix show that if you have not watched, I would love to hear your viewpoints on it. I would love to. Would you like to add anything to your intro, Jessica?
No, I think you did a good job.
What, Joshua? I don't. You got to look. I don't. Children, grown children who you knew you had to be at class at a certain time. Like, don't do this. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, Mara Brock Akil is a phenomenon within herself. And she's behind, a lot of people don't know that she was behind Moesha. A lot of people don't know there was a show that came out on Fox called South Central. She had worked on Girlfriends, Become Mary Jane. I feel like I'm missing something. But in the midst of all that, she has now put out what is called Forever. And it is one of those shows that I feel like everyone who has not watched it needs to watch it. Okay. It's just, and it's based on the controversial book Judy Blume wrote called Forever. And it's about this couple exploring the young lady's first time. And she admits when she decided to adapt the book, she flipped it. But it's not just about someone's first time. It's also about, to me, watching people fall in love. It's about dynamics. So we are both going to share our takeaways from the show and what we pulled from the show, what we felt like was important, and discuss those at length. And then we're going to get into her and her awesomeness and all the things that she's doing. So I guess we can do like a tennis match. I'm going to let you go first. What was one of the first takeaways you pulled from the show, Jessica?
Well, at first I wasn't even gonna watch the show.
Why?
Because I was like, I kept seeing it in my Netflix, and I was like, I do not want to watch no show about no teenagers. And I was on a 3.5 ride to Durham, and I was like, okay, this keeps coming up. Let me just watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started it, I was like, I can't believe I wasn't gonna watch this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I got so pulled in. But one of the takeaways as a mother, and especially a mother with teenage kids, how you parent your kids, especially when they are older and they are getting ready to get into the world, it really does have an effect on who they are, how they react, and things of that sort. And so one of my biggest takeaways from the show was that not only are we impactful as parents to their childhood life, but their adult life, their love life, and how much of a pillar we are in that.
Mm-hmm. So hold on one second. Let me make sure this child. So when you So I love that too. Like there was a very important scene in the book that really stuck out to me. It was the scene where they're at Martha's Vineyard, which now I need to go to Martha's Vineyard.
Yes, absolutely. I'm ready.
So there was a scene where they were sitting down with, I'm assuming he was like an uncle of the family.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about plans after high school. And she was like, oh yeah. And he was like, yeah, I'm going into the league. I'm going to go play basketball. And the uncle said, what? Like you're not playing no ball. And for those of you who have not watched the show, Justin wasn't even getting off the bench at one point, and he was going into his senior year.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody who knows anything about sports usually is the ones who are getting playing time that get looks. It's not the people that you get in the game every now and again. I don't. So it's just that unrealistic expectation. If you haven't watched it, if you don't want these spoilers, then you don't want to watch it. But watch this. But we're definitely may spoil some things for you. But she was adamant that her best way of him being successful in life, being a Black male, being successful, was him going to Northwestern, a school he really didn't want to go to, and playing D1 ball. And that was not even. And what I got from your takeaway too is we as parents have to be realistic about, and are we really listening to our child to see what they really want?
Right. Right.
And I felt like, because there was a point in the show where they listened to his beats, but they didn't see that as an option. They just saw that as a hobby. They didn't see that as that's something he could do. And I don't know, maybe because that's the way he presented it that way,
Hmm.
or they just was like, music, nah, let's try this college thing and go from there. So that was mind-boggling to me. So and I kind of already gave away one of my takeaways in Missing Me Talking, just really listening to your child and being
Yeah.
open to what they really want to do. And I say that because at one point, just transparency, and I shared this before. My son at one point was like, I don't know if I want to go to college. And a part of me did freak out, but it did not outwardly show.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, what is your plan then? So what's the plan? What are we gonna do? Now, of course, what? You are not interrupting my podcast. Okay, maybe my face showed it. So no, what he doesn't understand that I didn't react in the way my mother would have reacted. He
Hmm.
knows Nana. He does not know Barbara Jenkins. So
Right.
so the point I'm trying to make is I was like, okay, so what is your plan? Like what are we gonna do in the meantime? We just can't sit at the house. So we talked about it, and then eventually I think over a couple, because that was like his sophomore year that he made this decision. He made that. And I was like, okay, let's go from here. And then over time that had changed. But I was open because when I really look back on my experience as a child, I was telling somebody, well, me and my brother, it wasn't a matter of if you're going to college, it was where.
Yeah.
And I realized we were not. I can definitely speak for myself, and I can probably speak for him based on his experience. We weren't prepared to go to college. We maybe should have went to like a Midland Sec to get some things straight first, then go to college. We wouldn't have
Yeah.
wasted so much money. But it's like when Justin finally decided and was brave enough to tell his parents, I don't want to go to Northwestern. I was proud of him for that. Like, did you see him doing that?
Um, I didn't, but I'll say I did and I didn't. Like, I was surprised, but not surprised. I think I was more like excited. Like, yeah, Justin, you chose the right way because um throughout the show, I was like, Justin, you about to be grown and you acting like a baby. Like you are very coddled. And so
Mm-hmm.
by him standing up and saying, this is not what I want, this is what I want, I was like, okay, we see Justin the man coming forth. Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I kind of got both sides, the parent side and his side, because I've been on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
I was a cosmetologist and I went into college for a year on a track scholarship. And I was just like, I don't really want to be here. Like, this is really
Mm-hmm.
not what I want to do. I was not prepared for college life. I was not prepared for collegiate athletics, none of those things. And so I came back, went to Midlands Tech, and I started for a semester and I was like, I really want to do hair. Like I was the kitchen titian in high school. Everybody's coming to my mama kitchen. I was giving them French rolls, finger waves, micro braids, everything. And I had a similar experience where it wasn't with my mom, but it was with my dad. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, I'm going to drop out of Midlands Tech and I'm going to cosmetology school because I was doing both. But they told me if I late, one more time, they kick me out the program. And my dad was like, no, you're too smart to go to cosmetology school. You need to go to college, da 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, this is my life. And I said, I understand that I'm your child. I said, but the decisions that I make right now are going to affect me later as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time they were moving. And so I enrolled, went into cosmetology school, pulled the plug, did not move with them. And that was like my first like moment of I'm an adultish, so I understood Justin in that moment. I really resonated with him when he did that. And it turned out for me. But like you said earlier, I had a plan. Like, what was I gonna do? And
Mm-hmm.
I understood his mom and his parents, like, you just want to do beats. Um, he needed a plan. And
Mm-hmm.
so what were you going to do until that took off?
Yeah.
Because you do have to be realistic about your dreams too, because sometimes the things that you want to do um, may not necessarily be what you're supposed to do in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the underlying tone here was that you need to do something that is stable that could at least fund you doing beats. So if
Yeah.
he wasn't going to like a school of arts and music and things like that, he still could have went to school, free
Mm-hmm.
tuition, and still did his his beats because you got to do something with that in between time, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I know, if I'm not mistaken, and those of you who are in the chat, feel free to make any comments. I'll admit I'm on live on TikTok on my iPad. So so feel free to make any comments. But I'm not gonna mistake. He did have to work, and it wasn't like he was at the house chilling. But I do wonder why he did not explore, and maybe that's something they'll explore in season 2. Like, why didn't he explore going to school for music? Because there are a lot of music programs at different schools and whatnot. Even one at Howard, even though I honestly did not want him to go to Howard, Keisha obviously did not want him to go to Howard.
Yes.
It was like that was her. She needed to get away because she felt like she was holding him up, which she did more than she really wanted to. And I applaud her for that. Like, I feel like some of the gumption he got about himself was being in relationship with Keisha.
Mm-hmm.
So it was crazy to me. So it's just one of those things where something you said, I wonder why, and I want to talk about that a little bit. Why do we associate certain careers as not being intelligent and not having expertise? Like, you mentioned what your dad said about you're too smart to go to cosmetology school, when a lot of people, like, one thing I've never understood why that's not happening is why we don't look at cosmetology as a STEM career when it is. When you talk about the chemicals, the hair washing, I mean the hair, that's a form of STEM.
Mm-hmm.
But for whatever reason, we look at engineering. Like, what do we have to do as parents, or why do you think people, like, even like auto mechanics, that's a form of engineering, but for whatever reason, people look at it a certain way. And I wonder why that is.
I think it goes back to the generations before us. And
Mm-hmm.
you have to think about the propaganda that media, um, that is put through media to say what is a good job, what is this. And our parents and their parents, especially in the Black community, we came from free service-based industry per se, slavery, service-based, free. And so I think service-based things had a certain stigma to them. And so it became do something corporately or work at a bank or something like that. Those kind of jobs came with a prestige and a honor, but it was it was looked down upon if you served someone. And
Mm-hmm.
so people who they deemed weren't smart enough and things like that, they pushed them off to trades, which I never understood that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
do y'all not know, like, okay, you have electrical engineering, but then you have an electrician. The
Mm-hmm.
electrical engineering just knows the knowledge of it, but the electrical engineer could never go out and actually put it together or problem solve or do those things. And so what really needs to happen, the conversation that needs to happen is service-based industries, when you have electricians, plumbers, cosmetology, things
Mm-hmm.
like that. I really feel like they are for a different type of thinker. You have to be able to do more than just memorize what a book says.
Yeah.
Um, and so technically, you do need to be pretty smart
Mm-hmm.
to do these things. And when I got into cosmetology school myself, I was like, yo, what? Like, I can't recall now, but then I had to know every bone in the body. I had to know the nerves. I had to know the muscles. Like anatomy, what people didn't understand is that anatomy and physiology is a part of your bookwork for
Yes.
cosmetology. You have to understand diseases. You have to understand how the body works. You have to understand how the muscles work. And we see cosmetology because that's the way it's been presented, just as let me just style your hair. But it goes deeper into that because we got to understand chemical reactions and pH levels. And so there's just more to it. That's why I say there's a cosmetologist and there's somebody who does hair.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's levels to it. And so you have to literally understand all of that because you got to understand, well, you know, what happens if I'm shampooing somebody's hair, and like we got to know things like what is the pH of the water in my city, because
Mm-hmm.
that determines what type of shampoos that I'm going to use, because I could be adding to the pH level being more alkaline than acidic, and things like that.
I did not
So
know that. Oh my
it,
gosh.
it's
Okay.
just people really don't understand, and I think we really haven't opened people up
Mm-hmm.
to understanding the industry. We've allowed people to kind of just like say, "Oh, you just do hair."
Mm-hmm.
No, like it's actually a very lucrative thing. And when people are like, "Oh, you went to cosmetology school?" Yeah, like you went to college, you know, and you're sitting at a job, you know, that might pay you 30 back then, 40,000 a year, but I'm a cosmetologist and I'm making six figures.
Mm-hmm.
So you got your so like, and I see when I'm seeing now too, even on in the internet, that there is a push for technicians in service-based industry. What people did not realize is that you make a lot of money, because anytime that you can provide a service for somebody who cannot do that themselves,
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly.
automatically there's money into that. So yeah, I just think that's just from an old way of thinking, and not anytime someone speaks about something that they fully don't understand, it's always going to be an ignorant perspective.
That's so good. And I just, while you were talking, for those of you who don't follow, his name is Christopher Emblin, and I might be saying his name wrong. I'll look it up while I'm talking and I'll put it in the chat. But he um, has this whole curriculum and this whole move on making sure our Black kids understand the depths of STEM and seeing it in auto mechanics, seeing it in hairstyling, um, knowing exactly, how their career fits into this. Because for too long, we've been teaching kids this is STEM and not realizing that STEM is all around them and
Mm-hmm.
that they already contribute toward this field. Another thing that you said that sticks out to me is I remember a former mentee of mine, and she was a former student, went to school. Mom said she did well, but she was not happy and left there and went to esthetician school, and now is doing the doggone thing with being an MUA and whatnot. And what I love about that is she had the courage to tell her
Yeah.
mom, I'm not, this is not working for me. You admitted you had the courage to tell your mom and your dad, this is not working for me. And the fact that you have that type of relationship with your family says a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike me, not really saying anything negative about my relationship, but I felt obligated. I need to finish school and do something with this. And everything, it worked out for my favor because I ended up teaching for over 20 years. But
Mm-hmm.
nevertheless, I do feel like the plan should have been altered if there was a little bit more openness there.
Yeah.
So someone just commented on Facebook, Andre, my homeboy from back in Sumter, he didn't know it was based on a Judy Blume book. Yes, she got Judy Blume's permission to write this book. She was very deliberate about, like, in the actual book, she admitted that the Keisha character was the guy character in the book. Like, he was more experienced, and she flipped it. So, and of course, she was going to make it blackity black, 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 because that's who Mara Brock Akil is.
Yeah.
But she definitely, and I don't know how the meeting, like how it transpired. She talks about that. I really don't remember. But it's a great story to listen to. But the fact they're doing a season 2, I just wonder where it's going. So we kind of went on a tangent there, which is good. Did you have another takeaway that you got from the show? Like something that you were like, I loved how they did this, or I wish they did this?
I love how they depicted the Black community. That was so refreshing because a lot of times media or movies tend to go to the outliners, the outskewers. Like the Black family is either super, super wealthy or they're super, super poor.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt like it was so realistic, all the way down to Keisha and her mama in the single parent home, because that's what most single parent homes look like, not
Yeah.
what we see in the movies and things like struggling and everybody gangster and in the, like, yes, that is, those things happen, but that is not like all. So we got to see like different aspects, and then you get to see on Justin's side, a very well-to-do family, but
Mm-hmm.
both of his parents like they didn't come from that, but they
Mm-hmm.
created a life like that. And so a lot of us can really resonate with that. Like we tell our kids all the time, we like, y'all around here trying to act gangster, like y'all ain't about that life. Like we were about that life, like we grew up like that. Y'all suburb kids, like y'all
Mm-hmm.
don't, y'all don't know what it's like to live how we live, and we literally created a life so that our children wouldn't have to do so.
Mm-hmm.
um, but I just loved, like, it was like gentrified hood. Like, like, this is where I am, but I'm not gonna forget where I came from
Yeah.
type situation. And just the dynamic and the mom and the dad and their family dynamics. And I just was like, this is so refreshing. And yes, we go to the vineyard every year as well. So it was like, this is the reality of what Black families look like that we don't get to see a
Mm-hmm.
lot. And so I absolutely love that. You got your Justin's mom, who's, high in corporate, and then you got the chef entrepreneur dad. Like, I was like, that's it right there. Like
Yeah.
that is it.
So I Justin's just I like how Mara Brock Akil was very intentional about the relationships and how it was depicted. Like the fact that Justin's dad was able to go in the room and say, "We need to have a talk." Like they
Yeah.
like when he felt like he couldn't talk to his mom, he can definitely talk to his dad and be an open with
Mhm.
his dad, which I love that about him. And then it also showed that power dynamic. And I don't know if the power dynamic is a question, which I did want to ask that question. We noticed that the mom was harder on him than his dad. His dad was more like, let him breathe, let him be a man. Do you find yourself dealing with that with you and your husband, with your boys?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because we are like, mothers are the central location of the home.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are watching and guarding everything.
Mm-hmm.
And as a mom, you are always, I don't care if your child is 67 years old, if you still live, and there's an aspect of you that wants to protect your child and
Mm-hmm.
wants the best for your child. And myself having two boys, um, I saw some things in her and I was like, am I like that? And I was like, oh wow, okay. But I get it, because you want to see your son succeed, you want to see them win, and so you are coming from a motherly point, and the dad was the balance, and so I think
Mm-hmm.
he needed both. I think he needed everything that she gave, and he needed everything that his dad gave. I felt like that was very healthy. And
Yeah.
also what we saw what submission was. Submission, not in what we think the world says, like you better do what your man tell
Mm-hmm.
you to do it. No,
Mm-hmm.
that was a very healthy marriage. They heard each other's side, and she was a very strong woman, but she also submitted to her husband. And the way he
Mhm.
did it, I'd be like, okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So I
Exactly.
loved that aspect because it showed what healthy relationships look like. We're not gonna agree. And I don't think that we should do this. But I'm trusting you as the head of this house to lead, to guide. And I'm be like, all right, but I don't like it, but okay.
Mhm.
And he never made it a point of like her opinion didn't matter. Like he was her light, what I call it, her fire extinguisher. Because sometimes she got fiery, sometimes she was a little too much, and she was a little overbearing. And if he didn't step in, like Justin would have been a way far gone than what he is now. He would have
Mhm.
been even more babied. Um, and so I love that dynamic there.
That was, and that, like, even a key submission point. Well, there were several where you saw, okay, she respects his opinion, and this is our child. So if you feel like this is best for us, I'm gonna roll with it for right now. The first scene was when he wanted to go to the party at the beginning of the movie, because now realistically he didn't know who was throwing this party. I mean, where and what, and he was trying to be vague with the details. And his mom was like, "Remember, we said we're not doing this anymore." And then Dad, they talked, and he went in the room and said, "Okay, this is what we need to talk about," and they let him go to the party. Then when they found out that Keisha was on the island, Martha's Vineyard, Mom saw Keisha, wasn't gonna say anything because she's like, she broke my baby's heart and she don't deserve to see him.
Mhm.
And Dad sat him down at that basketball court and was like, Keisha's here. So what? And I admire that about him, because his thing is he understood what his son felt for her.
Yeah.
It was obviously very deep. Like, my son had me laughing because he said the fact that Justin was in khakis and he slept all day. You know how uncomfortable khakis were? That means his heart was really broken. He slept all day, missed school because of that girl. And I was like, I guess I understand. I don't know. So, and I know the mom internalized that, but I love the dynamic again, even with Keisha and her mom, which, to a point, I don't like how she was a single mom in the sense that she was not married. And I have to
Yeah.
remind people that's what single mom means. It doesn't
Right.
mean the father wasn't there. Now, the
Right.
father was there, but he wasn't there. Like, Keisha
Right.
had a relationship with him, but it wasn't to the magnitude. I know the grandfather did not approve. Like, the grandfather felt like he should be doing a lot more than what he is. But
Yeah.
he definitely had some input, because if it wasn't for Keisha's father speaking up and saying, he's holding on to you, like basically telling him that Justin is holding you back.
Yeah.
I don't think she would have been open with him about when he voiced coming to Howard.
Yeah.
She let him know, I don't think that's what you want to do. I think you're chasing things I want to do, but not necessarily what you want to do.
Yeah.
So that says a lot about their relationship. I also loved how she revealed the village, especially with Keisha. I know, for me being a single mom, my son's father was present, but I also had other people. So she had,
Mhm.
I don't know, those, I guess they were aunts or were they older cousins? I can't
I
remember.
think they were older cousins.
Okay,
Yeah.
so because one did hair, and the other
Mhm.
one I remember worked at that particular company, and they basically looked out for her. You had the grandfather who would pick her up for track practice, and you had just basically the village and the community and how they looked out for each other. I love that
Mhm.
whole dynamic, and then even to the point with showing the Martha's Vineyard, but even to the point when the news came out about the sex tape and how Justin's mom called Keisha's mom
Yeah.
to check on her. Like, do we really, when we say we're really about the community, are we really about the community? Are we really looking
Correct.
out for each other? Because she empathized with her that you're dealing with something that's very hard to face. So let's talk about it and see how we can navigate this, or how I can help you navigate this space with your daughter.
Yeah.
I thought that was a very, that's something you don't see a lot on
Right.
TV that I think
Yeah.
is very important to be seen.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So it was I don't know. So one thing I also When it comes to a takeaway I had, and I just brought this up when I was on a live last night. Now, I'll admit I'm a Christian, so I do believe you should wait to have sex. Obviously, I didn't because I have a 19-year-old son. But nevertheless, what came out of forever is, do we have genuine conversations with our kids about navigating that space? So I
Mm-hmm.
say that because Keisha admits that she had oral with the guy, the first boyfriend she had, because she was afraid of getting pregnant, not realizing that she's also putting herself in a very compromising position, and just knowing, how do I show that I like someone without being, do I have to be physical per se?
Yeah.
And I say that also, I'm sorry if I'm jumping around, but when they were in the movie theater, when her and Justin were in the movie theater, and she went to go down on him, and he was like, why are you doing that? And she thought, well, because you were nice to me, I got to
Mm-hmm.
do something for you. And it's like, as parents, are we having legit conversations about our kids, how to navigate physically and emotionally in
Mm-hmm.
relationships? What do we do with these feelings and whatnot? Um, I'll admit, me and my son kind of tiptoe around the conversation because he gets mortified and embarrassed. But it's like, I feel like even someone was saying on another podcast I was watching, they were saying how people are quick to tell girls, don't be fast, don't talk to boys. But when you finally find a boy that you like when you're older, you never had that experience, so you don't know how to navigate that space because no one
Mm-hmm.
really taught you how to do that. So that is one thing I took away, is that we definitely need to have more conversations, even if they're very uncomfortable with our kids, about how to navigate that relationship space. The reality is, they are going to have feelings for people. They are going
Mm-hmm.
to be attracted to people, but do they know how to handle what they're feeling inside, or do we just like tell them to ignore it and move on?
Right. Right. Yeah. I think that's good. And I think it needs to happen more, because if it did, I don't think we would have these over sexually teenagers. Like, they out there. They
They,
out there.
they are,
And
yeah.
the music, what they watch, like, it's being glorified. And so an adult, a parent, somebody has to have these conversations so that they don't feel like, if I'm not a part of this, then there's something wrong with me. And so we have
Mhm,
those conversations. Like, my husband talks to the boys more about it, and
mhm,
I'll talk to them from a girl's perspective. Um, and even my 12-year-old daughter, like, we've been having conversations,
mhm,
and what's appropriate and what's not, and what you don't have to do. And I think a lot of people come from the standpoint of, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it.
mhm,
And as Christians, the Bible doesn't have, how can I say this? It tells us what we shouldn't do,
mhm,
but it gives us the choice to do so.
mhm.
And let me say this correctly for somebody take my words out of context. Um, we're not forced to accept Christ as our personal savior. We're
We're
given the
not.
choice to do so. And how we're given the choice to do so is through knowledge, wisdom, and information. And
Mhm,
so when we understand why the Bible says, don't fornicate, don't commit adultery,
mhm,
don't have wicked thoughts. When we understand why, now we understand that these are just parameters that protect us, and not rules and laws that say, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. Like, fornication. Okay, now, so now Keisha caught up. Now there's a tape out, right? But if you just had not simply done the act, you would not have had to deal with the consequence. And
mhm,
so when we come from the angle that these things are put in place to protect you so that you don't have to deal with the consequences of them, then I feel like that they understand them more. The more I understand that the Bible is full of provisions that protect me, that
mhm,
keep me safe, the more I want to follow them, because I'm like, oh, I wouldn't have had to go through this had I just took heed to this. I wouldn't have to do this if I just had to do this. So if we have open conversations about, I think we make We make sex this forbidden thing. And so what happens is when they do fall in love and they do get married, now their bedroom looks funny because we've attached sex to this negative thing. And so
Mm-hmm.
one thing that I've shared with my daughter is that like what you have is sacred. Like that's not to be shared with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It should be shared for that person that you really want to spend the rest of your life with because it is such a gift. And we talk about you're going to have feelings. There's going to be hormones. There's going to be things, but in that place you have to understand who you are. And
Mm-hmm.
I think most women and men, they engage in sexual activity early because they do not know who they are. They do not value themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then you become an adult and you be like, oh my gosh, I wish I had never. And it's just because
Exactly.
people don't have open and honest conversations
Mm-hmm.
um, with them about it. And the reality is your kids gonna do what your kids gonna do.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't watch them 24/7. And
Mm-hmm.
so you got to make sure that you cover all parameters. Like, here's what happened. Could happen if you do this and you can get caught up and then in this and then there can be a baby or there can be a disease or there can be this. But if you do, then they have preventative measures and they have like, and I hate to have that conversation, but the fact
It's
is that they're
real.
going to do what they're going, we adults and
Mm-hmm.
God be telling us to do stuff. And the fact is we just do what we gonna do. And sometimes God has to teach our lesson through experiences. So we just have to have really open and raw conversations. And
We
I
do.
think when they understand exactly what sex is and
Mm-hmm.
the beauty of it, they will be able to resist more.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that they won't have the urge, but they'll be like, well, you do not deserve what I got. So like,
Exactly.
yes. Or your sons would be like, that ain't somebody
Mm-hmm.
that I want to slip up and get pregnant. I ain't want to deal with her for the rest of life. When you think like that, it'll make you change your actions real quick. Like, nah.
Exactly. And it's just I was watching um Kirk Franklin. I don't know if this is a podcast he's launching, but it was a conversation with him, Country Wayne, DC
Mm-hmm.
McFly, um, DeVal, and I forgot the other guy, but he's a comedian.
Yeah.
But
I forgot his name, but he always be picking on Dion.
yeah, he imitates people. But
Mm-hmm.
it was interesting to see the dichotomy of the tape because you have Country Wayne who has 10 kids, and then DeVal who admits all my 4 kids are with my woman, but DeVal admits that his brother, he has different kids with different women, and he said, but at the same time, he said if he was really cognizant and not just getting caught up in the moment, he maybe wouldn't have allowed himself to be with those women. And the reality is we can't take back our kids for anything. But at the same time, some of us, if we're honest, our child's father or our child's mother was not the best because we got caught up in a moment and not thinking about this could be a potential lifetime relationship that I'm establishing here.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to my mom the other day where God truly looked out for me, where my son's father is truly like a hero to him in the sense that they have a good relationship. He's, I mean, very solid. It's not a whole bunch of riffraff, and and it could have went a different way. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, we just have to be very cognizant because I was in a setting, and I counted the number of girls, Jessica, girls that were pregnant.
Wow.
That shouldn't happen. Like it shouldn't. Granted, the reality is, I know some of you were saying how I'm not going to say like growing up in the 80s and the 90s, even back, if you go back even further, we've always had provocative music, but you didn't have access to it. Now, as we were coming up, they started being a little bit more lenient with certain
Mm-hmm.
music. But as far as the visuals, it was certain things you just did not see on
Yeah.
TV. And
Yeah.
now these kids with streaming platforms and even with cable television, they have more access. And then we give everybody a laptop and everybody a phone
with internet access, but no one's having conversations about these things that they could be, these images they're ingesting.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result, they are more prone. But at the switch of that, the flip of that is like they have access to all this information, and these kids, and it's like, you know, the level of STDs are high amongst your age groups, but you're still engaging to the point where having not just one but multiple babies, and it's just like, we need it. Are we really having a conversation with our kids? We definitely need, and it may not be you as a parent. If you don't feel comfortable as a parent, whether it's a mentor that you know that they can look up to, or someone they can pull from, someone they can talk to have a genuine conversation, because you don't want them out there and they didn't know. And I'll say this last point and then we'll move on. I never forget, my mom told me, you want to wait to have sex. She said, don't have sex now because you're not mature enough to handle all that comes with it.
Oof.
And I was like, I just kind of looked at her, but she didn't break it. I needed her to break it down.
Yes, and that's the key point.
And
break it down.
As a teenager, I'm thinking, I'm mature. Like that teenage age, the ignorant age, I call it sometimes. You really think you're mature, but if she really would have broke down how the soul ties and how how women are wired versus how men are wired, and how that can convolute things and whatnot. And it's just, I know I would have done things a whole lot differently if she really broke that down. So that is just one of those things. I'll never forget being somewhere and there was a poster, and it was 101 ways to make love without having sex.
Wow.
And it's like, if people knew that, you don't have to engage. So this was a great discussion. Again, if you have not watched Forever, I think people should watch it with families. I will.
Yes.
If you are not, if there are some sexual scenes, they don't go into detail. So if you're not ready for that, maybe you want to preview it before you watch it with your kids. But I think it's a discussion to be had, especially the dynamic with the mom and the son. I mean, every family aspect, there are discussions to be had that we need to see. Am I not reflecting that? Am I being the parent you feel like I should be? It's just so much that made me reflect as a parent and made me want to have some discussions with Joshua that to this day I'm still working on. So So one thing I definitely want to get into next is you. So granted, I think we have about 10 more minutes, but I'm willing to extend it because I want to hear more about your story, what you have going on, what is new with you, because I know you are pivoting or transitioning. Even I saw your Instagram post last night, how you're relaunching some things. So let's hear more about your story and what you have going on, Jessica.
So at this point, I'm a master pivoter. I did not realize it. And I used to be someone who felt like, well, I allowed people to tell me that I was all over the place, when actuality, I was literally just moving when God said move, and breaking the cultural norms that whatever you start, that's what you have to do for the remainder of your life. And if you did something different, it would be considered instability. And so I started out as a hairstylist. And from there, I got into education because I've always loved to teach, like teaching, coaching, mentoring. That's just natural. It comes firsthand. I can't help it. I try to stop, but I can't. And went into that. And so as I moved through my career, there was a point where I needed to retire. And so I've done things like I've had coaching programs. I've had my own product line. I've had my own sheer line, my own teaching education academy, all of the things. And God was just like, okay, it's time to come from behind the chair. It's time to shut it down. And at this point, I'm like, wait, what? Because like, this what I've been doing for the past, at the time, 18 years. And it was just like, no, we're going to do something different. And it was also a time in my life where things were becoming to get a little busier. The kids required more. And I had gotten so wrapped up into my career and what I was doing that I really was not ministering within my home.
Mm.
And so, before I was like, okay, we're going to start this boutique. And I started the boutique. And before it launched, God was like, okay, shut your books down and retire. I'm like, wait, we don't even know if this boutique gonna work. Like, what? But I was obedient, and I shut my books down. I'm retired. I launched the boutique. In the first 8 months, we did 6 figures. Um, we also did 6 figures the following year. And then that February, early March, I cut the doors down. I had to close, which was a very, that was one of the most detrimental things that I have done, because I've never shut something down and had to walk totally away from it. I've always been able to rebound, always, but this time there wasn't a rebound. And so I dealt with a lot of things like depression, anxiety, doubt. Um, like, God really showed me that my identity was in the things that I did. Um,
Mm.
and I really did not know who I was. And so these 2.5 years have really been a developmental time for me. And so now we're coming back. And I've tried to relaunch the boutique before, but it wasn't God telling me to do it. It was me, because I was just like, I gotta do something. I gotta get some money. I gotta do, and it never worked. Like, I would say it and then just didn't feel right. But this time around, it's been a constant, like, for the past 2 months,
Mm.
like a constant, almost like a thorn in my flesh. And I'm just like, are you really telling me to do this? And I got some confirmation. And so I remember when I closed the boutique the first time, God said, you're going to take everybody through this journey of life after this. And so that's what I've been doing. I've literally been sharing my ups, my downs, my wins, my losses, my feelings, my reflections, my revelations. Been sharing everything through social media. And I never forget, I was in the boutique, because I had a brick and mortar in Sand Hill, and I was in there. And he says that you're going to show everybody this, because then they're going to see what I'm going to do for you later. And I always held on to that. And I was like, what is this going to look like? And he was like, they had to see the downtime. They had to see the struggle. They had to see all of the things, so that they could see the glory in me when I allowed you to come back up. And so the instructions were very specific with this one. You're going to relaunch, but you're going to bring everybody along the process of the relaunch, the entire process. You're going to talk about your doubtful days. You're going to talk about, like, everything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I got to do this.
The level of exposure.
Yes. And he's just like, yeah. And so here we are, day 2 of the relaunch of Branded WC. And he's also brought me back to my boutique besties, which I started it last year. And I was like, I don't want to do this. I'm going into ministry. And I closed that down. And God was like, what your idea of what you think ministry is not what I'm calling you to. Like, that might be a portion of it, but he was like, I don't need you in the pulpit. I need you in these streets. And going back and going back into the industry, but showing them how you built the brand from beyond the chair, and going back into the boutique space. Like, I need you there, because there are people there that I need you to get and to bring to me. And so now I kind of understand the entire journey and everything. And it's just like, you are the ministry, like your life and what you've done. And that's the reason for the transparency post and all of that, because at the end of the day, we got to be fishermen of men. And how are we going to fish for men when we are always constantly confined within the 4 walls, when we're only talking to
The people here in the 4 walls.
the fellow Christians? And I kind of went and I looked at that, like, my messaging, and like, for faith-led women, for Christian women. And God was like, I really want you to look at your messaging, because this is not what I'm calling you to. There are people who that's what they're called to. They're called to develop people who are already in the faith. But God said, I made you rough around the edges because I need you to bring people to the faith. And you can't do that if you have encapsulated yourself just within that. And so I said, woo, I said, well, you done gave me a big old taste. Like, my God. But and so here we are. And so we're living out loud all of the things and not afraid to fail and allow God to see people redeem and restore. And that's what's going to draw men. So I'm on a mission to add to the kingdom. And there will be some cultivating within the kingdom, but my primary thing right now is to bring and to add to the kingdom.
Oh my gosh. So for those of you on TikTok, I see y'all scrolling and watching. She is on Instagram and YouTube, the Jessica Renee. Renee with 2 E's, the Jessica Renee. And a lot of
TikTok is the same thing.
TikTok is the same thing. So she's on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, the Jessica Renee. And I love her story and I love her journey. And I love the fact that she said a lot of people get caught up. A lot of people think in order to have a ministry or to minister, you have to have a church. And it's far from that. The reality is not everybody is called to be a pastor. Not everybody is called to be a minister as far as you are giving sermons and you are helping the pastor fulfill duties in their church. Some of us, like I think about my girls group, it's definitely a ministry within itself. The fact that I do spoken word, that is a ministry within itself, because if anybody knows anything about my brand and what I speak, something I speak is going to bring power to your life. I'm not going to talk about things that I feel like will devalue you or cause you to do things that's contradictory to what God has for you. And the fact that you recognize, number one, you're not traditional in the sense where you do have some of us who are professionals and they stick to that one profession and that's what they do throughout their life. And that was actually a post I posted the other day, and I had chills listening to you because it did not make sense for me to leave the classroom. It did not make sense for me. I spent 20 years in the classroom. I was 7 years away from retirement. It did not make sense, especially when I'm in a family of professionals where they retired. Some of them retired 2 and 3 times from a profession. But the point is they retired. There was no such thing as having multiple jobs. No, I was a teacher and that was it. Or I was a social worker and that was it. I worked for the airline and that was it. So some people will look at you crazy when you are taking on multiple things that God put his hand on you for you to do. And it's nothing, and when you understand that God has told you to do these things, you understand that there's a grace to do all these things. And I guess, what do you believe? Because I'm pretty sure there's someone who will watching this now or will be watching. You admit you struggle with doubt, you struggle with depression. What got you over that, or what keeps you pushing through?
It sounds cliche, and people are like, I didn't have that, but it really is like God, like, and being in the Word. I don't think that people understand the power of the Bible. And so during that time, that's when I really got heavily in the Word. That's when my relationship with Christ really started to bloom and blossom. And understanding that what God says about you is irrevocable. Understanding that, having a different trajectory of your life is just as simple as changing your mindset. And all of these principles and self-help books that people read all the time, those are good, but they are all based off of biblical principles. The Bible is the living word. And so really just eating off of that and stewing in it got me through those difficult moments. There was nothing else, I don't think, that that could have. And whatever you focus on, that's what takes precedence within your mind. And the thing that people don't realize is that you are not created. It's humanly impossible to have two thoughts at one time. And so when you understand the things of what the Bible says, you understand that's why the Bible says, do not conform to the ways and patterns of this world. That's why the Bible says, renew my mind, transform my thinking, because if I think on the things that are good, if I think on the things that are God, if I'm in a situation, I'm like, dang, my boutique closed. That means I don't have no more income coming. That means I don't have any more of this. When I start focusing on that, that becomes my reality. And my body starts to react off of what I'm thinking, right? And so I have a belief, I have a thought and a belief and a reaction. And so if I can transform my mind by looking at the situation from a different perspective. What did God say about this? Like, what's the beauty in this? Because all things work out for the good of those who love them. All things, not some things, not a little bit of things, but all things. And so, what is the good in this situation right here? Okay, I get to spend time with my family. The good is that I was so very self-dependent. Now I'm having to learn how to depend on my husband. I'm having to learn how to allow him to lead. Like, I get to take my kids, I get to take them everywhere they need to go. Like, not, oh my gosh, I got to take them. But these are moments that I will never get back. Coming into recruiting for my son, like,
I was just about to bring that up. I
yeah,
watched you on your journey. You could see you
yeah,
were there.
yeah, the past 2 summers, I've been at every single thing, every camp, every recruitment thing. And so that's something that I would not have been able to say, oh, okay, let's go back and let's do this. I can reopen a business, but I can't relive those moments and those memories with them. And the more I thought on those things, the more my mood shifted, the more my energy changed, the more I got this joy. Like, I finally understood with having a peace that surpasses all understanding, because I should not have peace right now. I should be in shambles. But I tell people, like, I am the most happiest that I have been in my entire life. That does not mean that I still don't face things or that I still don't become overwhelmed. But in totality, I have the most peace. In totality, I have joy. There's not this gloom hanging over me that I have to perform. And so now I'm in a position where I literally get to relaunch with God's blueprint with no pressure of society. And that right there is like the most liberating thing as an entrepreneur. Like, I'm not doing these things to please you all. I'm not doing these things for the accolades. I'm not doing these things to hit the monuments and to be able to announce this, that, and the other. I'm literally following the journey. I'm being obedient and I'm trusting in his plan.
That's a word within itself. So you dropped several gems, and again, I need people to understand. That's why it's so important. If you don't have a relationship with God through Christ, to have one, because when they say He's the author and the finisher of our faith,
period.
That's literally what it means. And when we call that Jesus is Lord, a lot of people don't realize Lord means He leads my life, which
yes,
He directs. I don't just do what I do because I feel it. I do because I heard what He said, and I'm going to wait and hear instruction. And I'll admit that takes time to get there.
It does.
It takes to really hear His voice. It takes spending time with Him and just being quiet. And sometimes when y'all are riding your car, just turn the sound off. Especially if you're in the car by yourself, just don't have any sound playing. Or when you wake up in the morning, just find a way to spend time to really hear, because a lot of people feel like we're missing something if we walk away from certain lifestyles. I don't know why this came to mind, but Todd Delaney, a lot of people don't know he played professional baseball. and God told him, you need to do music. You know, so and for some people, and let's be real, the gospel industry is not known
To be
for
lucrative.
very lucrative at all. So for him to walk away from that and do that, that was mind-boggling. And there's many stories we can go through history and through people that y'all watch every day who God told them to do this and they realized, okay, let's do this. And it worked out. And God is not going to leave you out here looking crazy. Like a lot of people don't realize that scripture, I give you the power to get wealth. That means it was something that he gave us to create a lifestyle so we can live that life more abundantly.
Yeah.
But we have to tap into that and really know what he has for us.
Yeah.
The reality is teaching was never on my radar. God put it on my radar. I spent 20 years. And when he said, well, this is your last year teaching. And like I shared with somebody the other day, I still don't know what the heck I'm doing. Like I'm navigating the waters, but I guess for me, when you're used to, I want to use the term clock in and clock out, but that kind of was what I was doing. I love teaching, but at the same time, it was effortless for me. It was not hard, and it was a guaranteed benefits, guaranteed paycheck. It made sense. So when God told me to walk away from that and let's do this that I don't understand and I don't know what's going on, it was scary for me. Like even to the point, God told me in October of 2023, I didn't tell my mother until May of 2024 because I already knew like that was not going to be received well at all. And I'm grown, you know what I'm saying? So it's just one of those things, like you have to know what you know and just believe God to help you navigate that space. And I want to speak to all my people keep telling you, find your niche, find your niche. And that's something you speak of constantly in your videos. Some of us, we have multiple ones, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a matter of you stewarding your time, managing your time to make sure, not necessarily that everything is equally put out there, because I'm realizing more and more, is no such thing as a balanced lifestyle.
No, it's priority.
Prioritizing. And realizing, okay, let me work on this right now, and then I'm gonna work on this. And I think time management, you can effectively launch yourself into multiple careers, multiple niches, but you have to know what is in you and make sure you're doing something that you know God has called you to do, and not just something that you're good at. Because a lot of things we're good at, doesn't mean that that's what God has for us.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
So somebody commented yes. I don't know what you said yes to, but that's on TikTok. But I feel like we could talk forever, and there's definitely a part two, Jessica. I don't know what the topic will be, but I definitely feel like there's going to be a part two. I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know the next time I'm going to have a podcast episode. I'm looking at possibly August, relaunching season 3. Because technically this is the 12th episode, and I may do another episode this week. I haven't decided yet. I'm kind of flying with this because there's a lot going on. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So at the same time, please know that you can follow Jessica on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, The Jessica Renee, and that's 2 E's on the end, The Jessica Renee, and just I don't think I've ever been to a Ridgeview sporting event where her son was playing and she was not one of the loudest people in the stand. So,
yes, you're going to know when I'm there.
You know when she is there. And anybody knows me, I have no kids in sports, but I teach them. So I'm there rooting them on just as much. And that, I don't think y'all understand. I remember my pastor Marsha talking about how her daughter's last year in volleyball, God told her, you need to travel with her. Like instead of, she was in travel league. So she would take her on these road trips. And she said the amount of conversations they had in the car, in the hotel stays and whatnot, like that. I don't think people understand the value of time.
Priceless.
Priceless.
We've literally been living out of hotels. That's just how much traveling we have been doing. But I don't regret the time spent, the money spent, because like the road trips with the family, like it it has really drawn us closer um, as a family. And now, as a family, we're collectively making plans for, um, my oldest son and when he goes off to school. And I think it's so cool that he trusts us enough to um, have a say. And so everybody puts in, their 2 cents, but ultimately it's his decision at the end of the day, um, on what he gets to do. But we've looked forward to it. Like, we've created group chats out of it, and we send each other memes, and it's been the most rewarding thing. And my son graduates in December. So, like, when he graduates, I don't have to live the rest of my life saying, I wish I would have spent more time. Like, I wish I would, because once he goes to college in January, like, that's it. I mean, like, that it's not that's it, but like,
No,
he's
it is
gonna
that.
technically be on his own job and doing his own thing. And I'll only be able to see him when, he has free time, and so things like that. And so I definitely thank God for putting me in this position, because had he not forced me to retire, like, he knew I just wasn't gonna stop here. So it's like, okay, let me level her on out. Let me give her something to do to retire from here, and then shut that down. Now she ain't got nothing. You know what I'm saying? That type of thing. But I'm grateful for it. And just the moments when you get a phone call from the coach and it's like, hey, can you be somewhere tomorrow? Just being able to pack up and go, so those are the things that is worth it. And no, I'm not pulling in 6 figures or multiple 6 figures on things. And sometimes I'd be laughing. It's like, friends be like, you want to do something? Like, girl, I got $23.32 in my bank account. And they'd be like, oh, you be acting like you ain't got no. I said, but still, the point is, I am accustomed to being able to move how I want to move, and just all of these things. But what this journey has definitely made me realize is that, number one, I got to put my post out today about that. I got that already to go, but how we have made entrepreneurship an idol. And we want to go into it because we're focused on the money. And so what we're saying is entrepreneurship is the source that's going to give me the lifestyle I want. And that's why God is wrecking entrepreneurship, because he's like, no, 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 that is a resource. I am your source to give you what you want. And I had to detach from some things that I thought, like, do I really want to be on vacation like all the time? I like my living arrangements. Like, why? So I started to question a lot of things. And when we speak about, you said about wealth, society has put a number on what wealth is. Wealth is what it is to you and your lifestyle. There are people who make $60,000 a year and they are wealthy, doing everything that they need, because I realize I don't have to have all of the material things that I had. Like, I bought those things as status symbols. I bought them because I was like, oh, this means I'm doing it. And y'all, I don't even know where my Gucci purse at. I think it's under my seat in my truck somewhere. Like, it's like that. You know what I'm saying? And I just really realized that the reason why I feel like I have to make all of this amount of money is because I have to get all of these shiny objects and do these things. And do I want to be a millionaire? Absolutely, yes. But I don't want to be a millionaire to say I'm a millionaire. Like, I want to be at the point where I can give $100,000 away. Like, I want to be in an overflow, because the more overflow that I have, the more that I can give and that I can do for other people. I don't want the millionaire just so I can say I'm a millionaire, but so that sets my kids up, and then it sets their kids up, and like, that's the goal. And then it doesn't have to be in the bank. Like, y'all, assets are a very real thing, secure these assets. That
Mhm.
those are the things. And so this 2.5 year break has really changed my trajectory of what entrepreneurship is, and how I view it. And so now, even with this relaunch, I get to go back in without the pressure, because six figure doesn't mean that I made it. It doesn't mean successful, because if all you are after is the money, when you hit that, now you're gonna feel like I got it. It's like a drug. I got to do more. I got to do more, and then you're gonna find yourself working yourself to the bone, because no
Mhm.
amount of money is ever going to satisfy you. You got to get that from Christ. You got to be good with yourself, um, and that's when you really start truly living, and you start truly living a wealthy life.
Mhm.
That is okay. So again, the Jessica Renee. You can follow her on TikTok, Instagram, and TikTok. I said TikTok twice. Instagram and YouTube. This has been an awesome discussion, and I definitely feel us having a part two in the near future. Please note again, you can follow her. I'm gonna put it up again so y'all can see it. Oh, I was putting up a comment earlier. Someone from YouTube commented, "Great discussion. Thank you for tuning in, Talker Light." So I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate those of you who've been tuning in via TikTok. Instagram, for whatever reason, StreamYard and Instagram were not connecting. So I pulled up my phone, and some people have been tuning in there too a little bit. So again, Jessica Renee, the Jessica Renee, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. You can follow her there. You can also follow me on social media, on pretty much my first, middle, initial, last name everywhere. I'll admit I'm also on Instagram, where I added one pin to the end because I'm trying to transition some things. But so if you want to watch this, if you're currently watching at the latter end of the show, it will be up on YouTube. Not YouTube. It will be on YouTube forever. But as far as Facebook, it will be up for 24 hours. The audio, I will download that this afternoon, and then you will be able to access it on Apple, iHeart, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts and listen, it will be available to you to listen. But it's a great discussion to have, a great discussion to share, and you can go back and view my other episodes. We are now in episode 12, season 2, which is crazy to me. Because I just started this as a live with a former student. All three agreed. We sat down and talked about the importance of relationships, and it's gotten to the point people are like, well, can I be on your podcast? So I'm just like, oh, okay, let me figure some things out and see how we can do things. So array of topics. A lot of people ask, what do you talk about? I talk about whatever I feel like God wants me to talk about. I've talked about life insurance. I've talked about wills versus trust. I've talked about the importance of teacher relationship and how we really have to make sure we're connecting with these kids and we're not just teaching curriculum just to be teaching. I talked even with a group of former students, about why was it so important for them to be not only a stellar athlete, but a stellar person, period. They kept their grades up, their academics were on point. And now they're even though they're not pro the way we thought they would be, they are still pro in the instance that they're very successful and very thriving, very well, but they built certain traits in place to open up opportunities. And I think some of our athletes are forgetting the value of character and having a good character and how far that will take you versus talent. Yeah. So I greatly appreciate y'all tuning in. Share, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And y'all have a good one.